One thing I picked up from a certain Yngwie Malmsteen was that you want to choose the path of least resistance. And that seems negative, but it isn't really. It's a sign of intelligence. Because what I did in the beginning is that I had this idea that, first of all, my alternate picking should work on an acoustic guitar perfectly, the same way it worked on an electric. If I was into a scale, I would practice that scale because I needed to be able to play that scale across the neck, every string, be as certain with any scale shape anywhere in the neck as I would be with any one of the shapes, right? So I wanted that total control, that, right? And that really didn't help me, because your development is really, it's much more enjoyable to pick the path of least resistance all the time. You can always expand. But whenever you play something or come across a sequence like a sequence, a way of playing that's easier, that feels natural, then go with it, right? We have this intellectual understanding that we should master everything on this instrument, and that's, but whenever you find something that's easy and sounds good, just go for it, right? Really, I really mean that. I also refuse to do chords that were like, if you want to play in the beginning an F major, right? You can do it with a bar chord, or you can do it like this, right? I refuse to do the easy version. But why would you do that? Right? Because you want to do it right. There's no right or wrong, right? That's just, can you make it happen, and how soon can you make it happen so you can have even more fun, right? So pick the path of least resistance. When it comes to playing, for instance, let's just do a couple of areas within guitar playing where we can use this Yngwie Malmsteen principle, right? For instance, alternate picking is, in my experience and in a lot of other people's experience, the technique that most want to master, because it's also the hardest. It's not hard, it just takes longer than any other technique to master. It requires more precision and accuracy than any other technique, perhaps, right? And more repetitions. But so that's what we go for. Why, right? Instead, go for directional picking, economy picking. I'm not saying don't practice alternate picking, but by all means, go for legato. Well, you can't use that on an acoustic nylon string. It's not as effective. You can certainly use it with a few moderations and not as effectively as on a distorted electric guitar, but go for the path of least resistance. Get to the result. You want to play those fast ones, go for legato, man, right? Instead of this synchronizing hell with alternate picking. And if you do want the picking motion, go for economy picking. By also alternate picking, but choose, get to the result, man. Instead of having to right, want to practice the finest of the yeah, sure thing. But the more success you can have, the more you can assume the identity of a great guitar player, because you choose the path of least resistance in everything. Then you get there much faster, and then you get the identity, and now you start expecting better things of yourself. Right? And then you want to practice alternate picking like an insane person, perhaps, for a period of time. But now it doesn't feel like that needy, right? So go for the path of least resistance. And I saw other players do that. One of my friends who was, he was even playing on TV. I picked up one of his guitars, and the action was so low, right, that some of the strings were a little bit rattly, right, buzzing. And his strings were 0.8, the top E string. There's the thinnest, softest string he could get. And he used legato all the time. He wasn't that good at alternate picking. But when it came to performing and getting the job done, he was way better than me. Right? And so I just picked up one of his cheap guitars, by the way. And he was like, wow, this is easy to play. Oh, I love this. Then why wouldn't I set up my own guitars like that? I was basically confronted with the idiotic approach of, I want tone, so I'm using 0.11 on my top E string, and I have high tension because that also gives me a more clear tone, right? And I have, quite a high action because, I don't want the string rattling. Why not? Just go for the path of least resistance. If you have to pay a smidge in sound, then pay that price. Pleasure is what you're after. That's the whole point, right? So have softer strings that are easier to bend, right? Tune down 1/2 step, Yngwie Malmsteen, right? And then use thicker strings like, Stevie Ray Vaughan, right? To get that tone. Just go easy on yourself. Choose the path of least resistance. A sequence like on one string. That's really, right? Right? That's really a nice flowing sequence. You just, let me just give it to you right, in seconds here. We have the A minor scale. I'm picking the note on the B string in the 12th fret, and then I'm hammering on to the 15th, pulling off to the 13th, and pulling off down to the 12th again, right? And then I do that in every position on one string. Practice it back and forth between, right? That's really effective. Right? Because it's just so natural, and by another thing, right, that you can pick up from Yngwie Malmsteen is instead of going 3 notes on one string and then one on the next and then back again. It takes forever to learn. Then you can just select, play the in this case a harmonic minor, play the 9th fret on the B string, then the 10th fret on the B string, then the 12th fret, then move position up here to the 13th fret and play 3 notes down, 13, 12, and 10. So I go, right, slowly. Right. Then you get to stay on one string, play 4 notes, and you don't have to do any string shifts. I'm not saying learn the other thing as well. I'm just saying go for that first, so you can go, right? Why not, man? And so that gives you so much more pleasure, faster, sooner, and you assume the identity of one who can actually make the job happen when you're performing in front of others. You see yourself do these things, and everything is amazing. So is any other area I could just, I don't think so, not right now. Yeah, just the final one. Instead of having to learn all the scale shapes and be equally good at all the pentatonic shapes if you're using the cage system, right? Then just choose the 1st and the 4th, where you have the root note on the A string and you have the root note, E string, and then you have the root note on the A string. So in the case of A minor, you would have the 5th fret up here, and then I would have the 4th position up here in the 12th fret. Those are really great at phrasing in. Right? And then practice going back and forth. Now you can just focus on these two, and then you can use the other scale shapes in between as passing shapes, right? Right? And then go back and forth between the two. Of course, you have the 5th fret shape up here in the 17th fret as well. So you can go. So create a bridge between the two shapes and then really focus on these two shapes. Path of least resistance gives you almost the optimum result with, 1/10 of the effort. Don't forget to subscribe. Please subscribe. Please push that button. Please. 75% of people who watches these videos on my channel are not subscribed. It means something if you are. I hope to see you in the next video. And I hope this was valuable to you. Hit the bell icon. Go download the free course in the description here.